Welcome to the Healthy Metal Hippie podcast, where art and wellness collide. Well, hi and welcome back to the Healthy Metal Hippie. Today, you might have noticed something different about the podcast. That's right. We are debuting brand new intro music today, and even more exciting than that is we have an in-person guest, as you might see. Welcome back to the Healthy Metal Hippie, Nikken. I'm so happy you're here.
Well, thank you so very much, Ashley. I totally did not make that intro music 15 minutes ago.
So a lot of really exciting things have happened since the last time you were a guest. And this time, we have a lot to celebrate, I think.
We absolutely do. Cheers.
So, first of all, a happy cheers. Yay! Mm-hmm. So, what have you been working on lately?
Way too much. Way too much.
Mm-hmm.
I've been working on quite a lot of Isiliel stuff, some of which recently got released.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's lovely. I've been working on the follow-up to Moonbow Rebellion. And I've been working on some other things that I can't say too much about just yet.
I love secret things. We don't reveal secrets that aren't ready to be revealed yet on this show. But one of the biggest things that Isiliel and the Lilin are celebrating right now is the release of the latest EP. It came out on the 29th of May, and it is called Todeshochzeit. And do you want to tell us a bit about it?
Yes. So, Todeshochzeit. Well, there are a lot of things to say about it. I am very happy with the release and the reception. That's been great. Working on it is a story unto itself. Where do you want to begin?
Well, so from what I understand, you actually started working on it about a year ago.
About a year ago.
Or over a year ago.
More than that. It must have been around, what was the Kongsvinger show? The first Isiliel and the Lilin Kongsvinger show. That must have been October or November 2024.
Right.
So me and Ricky had been talking about doing some sort of goth EP for Isiliel around that time. And we met and talked in Kongsvinger, both before and after the show, and discussed the concepts for it. And already then he was pretty adamant that he really wanted to do something with necromantic. Particularly, he really wanted to do something with a theme from the song Ménage à Trois. And that turned out to be quite difficult for numerous reasons. One of them being that we were going to release the follow-up to Moonbow Genesis roughly half a year later. So I was hard at work with that. And I thought that we could do the EP much quicker. We couldn't because it was a challenging one. And after Moonbow Rebellion, we more or less went straight to putting all our focus into touring first and foremost, and then working on the EP. And that's been going on alongside working on the follow-up to Moonbow Rebellion. So as for the reasons it took so much time, it turns out that the style of music that was put up front as, let's call it our basic inspiration, is very unusual music to me. It's all in major scale, and I don't do major scale, which is already, you could almost say that that's pretty gothic, but the fact of the matter is that many of the original goth bands do a lot of major scale stuff. That logic of music is a little bit difficult to me. And it took a long time before it really clicked. We made a lot of material that we ultimately ended up not using. Because when it clicked, we had really found what direction we wanted to go with the EP, and just that took a lot of time. And then getting the 3 songs that we have there was actually quite a swift process. So the first one was figuring out how to do the necromantic theme, how to integrate that into an Isiliel type of package. And what made it click was that I was listening to The Cure one day, sitting on a bus listening to The Cure, and then suddenly it just made sense. You know, when you've been sitting on a problem for a very long time and you just work on it instead of procrastinating the issue. Because there's a fair amount of procrastination mixed in here too. Sooner or later, something just starts making sense to you, right? And that happened. And so making that song, Liebestod, did not take a long time.
And that is the, like, full-on collaboration one. Yeah.
It is.
I have to ask, if you don't mind, do you find yourself a chronic procrastinator?
Not really. I do procrastinate, but it's one of those things when you do creative work is that it's really hard to figure out when you are and when you're not procrastinating. Because sometimes you simply have to be receptive to new ideas. And that can be spending time listening to music or watching a show, or playing video games, or taking walks. And all of those can easily be called procrastination. But if I don't do those things, I just run out of ideas. Because I feel like I lose my footing in the world without those things, those reference points. You need to kind of hear what is going on in music to figure out how the new music that I make makes sense.
Right.
It's a living conversation, you know.
Absolutely. And for the record, I don't think you're a procrastinator. I do find that always very interesting. I think one of the things that you just said, you sat on it for a long time, but then listening to The Cure and then everything clicks. I think it is often in creative work, but I think there's a lot of any work that you'll be sitting there and suddenly you've been working on this problem for so long and then everything falls into place.
Right. So this whole thing with inspiration is such a dangerous topic for creatives, right? Because on the one hand, you have the Stephen King mindset, which, as he famously described it in his book on writing, seminal work for writers, because it's a damn good book on that and on the creative process in general. But he described that you have a muse who doesn't just wait until the time is right and strikes you with inspiration. Doesn't exactly work like that. He likens it more to someone who pays attention to what you do, and only when you put in the work and the muse can see that you're actually serious about it, will it start giving you dribbles of inspiration, right? That's one of the perspectives, but the other one is kind of the one where this could have taken a lot less time if you just settle for the ideas that you have and you just put something out, right? Many people like to, okay, let's just make a verse. This is the best one we came up with in a day or two. And let's just put a chorus here. This is the best we came up with, given the time. And then they just put it out. And then you can say, well, you know, it was the result of what we knew how to do. I don't do that. If I'm not happy with it, I do not put it out, under any circumstances whatsoever. If there are, and it does happen that you have a large cutting, floor, as it were, with lots of cut content. And I will much rather cut songs until you have a really short product than to allow even something I'm not happy with into it.
I think that makes sense. I do think sometimes maybe there is something for a balance between the two, right? Working to perfect the thing that you are working on, or just say into the bin.
I think that
versus just getting something done. I think there's times where just getting it done, maybe it's 80%, but it's done is very valuable in some aspects too. But God, there's so many variables about that though.
Absolutely. One of them is the one where the music industry is an extremely competitive place. So one of the images I learned in regards to that particular problem is the whole, would you like $10 or $5, Ash?
I definitely want $5. I definitely want $10.
I was so tempted to say so, but that's why I listened to X-Men or something. But I'm not going to take that shot. No, and I think the music industry is very often like that, right? So you have many things that end up being value to the customer in this case.
Yeah. Novelty
is one of them and such. But generally speaking, you want to, whatever you're doing with your song, you want this song to be the best of the particular thing it is doing, right? And you only have really one shot at that because you don't want to write a song that's almost the same song next year. And you don't want to have to rework the song either. All those things just look silly, right? You do get some golden opportunities, like doing an anniversary version of something, like we did with Jodo Dokisho.
Right.
Then it's like, oh, I think we could have done that particular thing better. A solo here would be nice. Yeah, it was basically, hey, Håkon, can I get a solo on this one?
Yeah.
All right. But barring that, you want that shot you have of the song, to make it whatever it is, the best of what it is. So you want it to be different from other songs so that, you don't have too much competition in this particular song. Let's write the best Fear of the Dark, for instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you want to do it as well as you possibly can. Just spend a lot of time simply figuring out what is this song trying to do? What is the goal of a song like this? Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm. I think I noticed that there's two things here. So I noticed that actually a lot in what you do is looking at the big picture of where do I and this song fit into the musical landscape of the universe, really. Not just of Japanese bands, not just of metal bands, but you're like literally everything, whether it's pop music or traditional music, how does it fit in for everything that's happening right now? Mm-hmm. And I really admire that. The other thing, I know we've talked too about, sometimes it's so, I guess it's a little bit of a letdown when you hear like an amazing song that maybe if they just spent like, another day even on it in production to really make it pop, make it stand out. And that's not by, over compressing it or things like that, but really highlight all these really strong points that's going to draw those ears. And man, I think there's a lot of songs that miss out on the glory they deserve.
So production is one thing too, Max, figuring out the sound. And one of the really nice things about having done Isiliel for so long is that we've kind of developed the sound. So that's kind of ready to go. I know how to do that sound, and we can always tweak it and develop it further. Mm-hmm. But we already know, we're starting with a guitar sound that's pretty close to this, for instance. Just guitar sound can drastically change everything, right? The drum sound can change everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of other things too, like how synth heavy is it, which synths are using. And those things already give you some sort of, it tells you what kind of leeway you have with the sound. Like obviously we can't do a polished pop production with this type of sound. Okay, so now we know that, okay, we're doing something that has something to do with, heavy hitting bass drums and very thuddy snares. Already that's plenty of context. That helps limit your options in the best way possible.
Mm-hmm. You very much need to have direction of, I guess, of intention in what you're releasing and what you're creating. I think we'd all have fun playing in the sandbox every day, doing outrageous shit. But I think having that focus makes all the difference.
Yes. So when I started out with songwriting, I usually start out with the perspective, oh, this is a cool riff, let's make a song out of it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I still fall into that. We don't want to call it trap because we all have our different approaches. And I had to reconnect with why I wanted to do music to begin with, which is that I have something that I want to do and say. I have music out there that hasn't been written, that I started doing music in order to create. Mm. Right? I started doing music because there were songs I hadn't heard yet that I really wanted to hear. And when I'm in the creative corner, I have that sensation that there's something on the tip of my tongue that can only really be expressed in music. Right? And if I don't have that sensation that something is at the tip of my tongue, I find incredibly difficult and laborious to write music because it's like, well, you don't have direction. You don't have something you're really exploring, right? Mm-hmm. Could be that you're trying to explore something theoretical, like a transmutation at the A minor scale or something like that. I don't know. But it's very much, I have this sensation that I want to dig into, and that I want to see what would happen if you amplify, for instance, or a concept or something like that. Without those things, it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. You just said the word amplify. And I don't know if I've said it outside of just directly saying it to you before, but something that I really admire about you is the way that you help people amplify all of their good parts and how you encourage people to strive to be their very best. You spent a lot of time on this EP as well, giving a lot of coaching vocally to Himari. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the recording process?
Perhaps for Todeshochzeit, but we need some context from Moonbow Rebellion and Moonbow Genesis before that.
Yes.
Because Himari's history as a vocalist and recording studios is, of course, a long history.
Yes.
Right. And she's no doubt picked up lots of tips and tricks along the way and techniques and all those kinds of things. So, when we did Studio Fredman recordings, he was the vocal producer on that one. Right. I arrived right after he had finished vocal recording. He might describe this very chop, very, when take and land, it was, well, pitch was incorrect or timing was incorrect or those things. And then you redo as if you're trying to hit the correct, what would you call it, end results. And that isn't necessarily how I approached vocal takes with Himari. Not for any particular reason. It was because what I was looking for wasn't first and foremost getting the pitch and the timing correct. See, I had a luxury of working with a relatively famous producer, Sylvia Massey. I also read her book, Recording Unhinged. And I learned so much from that short session I had with her recording 2 bands in Bergen. And the way she approached it was a very much, she might point out things like pitch and timing, but for the most part, she was very focused on what is the vocalist thinking? What is the vocalist feeling? Right? And she sees those as instruments she can manipulate, if you will, in order to get desired results. Because there are many things going on with the voice that makes it either connect or not connect. Right? I'm not going to get into some mystical ideas about, spiritual connections and such things. But it's certainly having the right feeling makes it easier to connect with your takes. And I remember one of the things that happened in the studio during one of those recordings was that there was a female vocalist singing in the studio, and it started to, she got stuck in a take. There was a take that just wasn't landing the way Sylvia wanted it to land. And so, I don't know who suggested it, but the boys in the band all took off their sweaters and went bare-chested into the recording room and danced around her. And she started smiling because she obviously thought it was funny and silly. And we got a really good take because her mind was taken off of the nuances of the have to do it correctly thing. And she could lower her shoulders on the recording itself, as it were. And when I work with Himari, I'm very focused on what mental image are we here? What character are you portraying right now? What is the scene? Who are you in relation to these things? And I want her thoughts to be a little bit away from just the technicalities of pitch and timing. Those things tend to come when you aren't thinking about them too hard sometimes.
Yeah.
During rehearsal, during training, during practice, you should totally think about things like pitch and timing and learn to control those things consciously. But during recording, there are other things that you're trying to hit also. And so those should be in your focus. When we did Todeshochzeit, we already had those things, but I couldn't be in the studio. So they tried to do the recordings without me connecting with them in some way. And so I talked to Himari about what are we going for with this song? What do you want to do with this song? How do you want this song to help you express what you want to express? And then we also talked about what vocal quality we're looking for, what do we want to do. And we experimented with those things until we found something that really gave me goosebumps all the way over here, sitting on the phone with Ricky, who sits in the studio when we got that take, right? And we took the time to experiment, and I really sincerely believe that taking that extra time with the recordings made all the difference in making the music connect as well as it seems to have done.
There's a lot of that. I think it's a big part, I think, of why I love music, but I think as part of why people in general love music. I guess some people connect with the music, some people connect with the words. I definitely feel that I connect with both, but when I'm thinking strictly about about a vocal performance or how does somebody sound on a recording, I want to feel what they're singing. And you make those deep connections, I think, because you can feel whatever kind of emotions they are, you can feel them coming through, whatever's coming out of the singer's mouth.
I really appreciate you mentioning that. So, one of the very nice things with Himari as a songwriter, lyricist, is that she will receive the vocal melody. So when I write the vocal melodies, I don't necessarily know how they will actually translate to the song. When they've been sung, I don't know what the words are going to be. So one thing I like to do is, after having sent the initial vocal melody and having received lyrics, I might go in and tweak the vocal melody to better express what the words are actually saying. And that can make such a tremendous difference. I want the real masters of that, I find, is Chibi from the Birthday Massacre. Like, she really, really knows how to make the vocal melody reflect what is being said. Because sometimes you have all these, in music, you have these weird inflections, because some people have this melody in their head and just put words to the melody, not at random, like, almost like you take a random poem and put it to a random melody.
Yeah.
And it's like these two have nothing to do with each other. And that makes it really hard to feel, because we have natural melody in our voice when we talk. Right? And if you mess too much with the vocal melody of just your talking, it sounds super duper weird, like on Tomodachi Island.
Yes.
Right? But where people talk like this. Right?
We just, for the record, we've been observing a lot of Tomodachi Island, and we are stuck on a very, very cursed island. And when I say you don't want to know, trust me, you don't want to know.
You absolutely do not want to know. So yeah, getting the vocal melody right for the lyrics is super duper duper important, because it's like, you can say that you either just care about the melody or just care about the words. So that's possible. It sounds a little bit like, it doesn't matter how well this actor acted in this part, because they only cared about the script.
Yeah,
right?
No, I agree. And I guess, yeah, I always find it interesting when people say things like that, but, in some ways I can understand it too. Yeah.
It's like, you don't necessarily know why something either connects or doesn't connect, right? You know what you're paying attention to, but things can hit you from all sorts of weird angles. And figuring out those things is one of the things that are very necessary to do, if you want to be a really good songwriter, because it's like, well, there are so many things you don't think are important, like, for instance, time signature, tempo, for instance, or, or harmony. Could be lots of things that people don't think are super duper important, but, if you take them out of it, or you change it up, you notice just how much of a difference it can make, right? And all those things are nerves, that I can push with my acupuncture of music, right? And being aware of how many of those I have access to, super important. If I am aware of too many of those, I get decision fatigue really quickly. But yeah, the vocal melody and how it interacts with the words, and how the music interacts with the words, and all those things, super important. So yeah. Actually, there was this song on the first album, Kikoku Embu, which we basically had to rewrite because it didn't hit right for Himari. And of course, she speaks Japanese, right? And I got no vocal melody, and I guess the vocal melody sounded somewhat fine. Maybe it was even good. But it did not interact correctly with the music, and the music didn't really build up correctly under it. And these were things that I couldn't really spot that easily. And then that was the first time where I could see the lyrics, and I could change the melody to fit the lyrics, right? And to have the correct inflections and the correct endings. And, many people really like that song. I think that was Frederick Nordstrom's favorite from the first album when we were in the studio.
Oh, that's so cool.
It is super cool.
You have worked with actually quite a number of legends.
I have.
And I think this is so interesting because it's like most people work their way to legends, and you were like, legends? right away. And then off we go, and then we take care of everything else. And I think it's just really cool. You have worked with, like you say, several legendary bands. You've been taught by legendary people. So do you want to share a little bit of insight about that?
I've been trying to make sense of that myself for a while, so I can walk you through how these things happened, and perhaps help me reflect a little bit. But to begin with, my songwriting career as such started 3 years or so after I started playing guitar. I think I started playing guitar when I was roughly like 10, 11, 12, thereabouts. I wanted to since I first heard Hammerfall and Sonata Arctica. Metal just clicked at the right time, if you will, right? And I was like, oh, this is perfect. And then I bothered my parents until they gave me a guitar. And then I would just play guitar and learn AC/DC and, well, Hammerfall, of course, and Slipknot after a while, and In Flames. And at some point, I had just heard Winter Sun's Death and the Healing. And some people who have paid attention to what I've said before might know that I really, really love Winter Sun. I love the vibe. I love the approach to songwriting. And I heard Death and the Healing. Gorgeous, gorgeous song. If you haven't heard anything that it inspired, if you were there when it was kind of just breaking through, I imagine it must have been a magical moment for you too. So 10 minutes afterwards or so, I just sat down, I got Guitar Pro 5, and I just blasted out a song. Because I knew the basics enough to at least put my, what would I call it, ideas to writing. Just write this first song. Wasn't a very good song, but it was a song. It was 9 minutes long. Right? And I was obsessed with that melody for a while. And it took me a while to write my next song, but whatever. By the time I was 16, I was pretty versed in Pro Tools, and recording. And I attended a school, that taught media and communication. And the reason I picked that school was because they had a music production, let's call it, a segment of the year was dedicated just to music production. And so it's like, well, duh. Right.
Obviously.
What
else would you do?
All right. And I sincerely believe that I was better at those things than a teacher, because teacher was kind of like a hobbyist, but I was very, very dedicated. I had a goal in mind with music, and it wasn't success as much as it was expressing really, really cool things, right? You're in that age where those things matter so much to you. And it has to be said, I wasn't overall better than my teacher. It's more that I had a very specific thing I was doing that I, of course, was more literate in, let's say, right? And, well, 3 or 4 years later, I'm done with that, and I attend Norwolf School of Music Production in Bergen. And now I was even more experienced, and I really knew what I was doing in particular areas. And I impressed my teachers, I imagine. And those teachers happened to be Herban and Albe from Enslaved. All right. And so they recruited me to their studio. Not recruited as in, I wasn't necessarily someone who was there all the time, but I was a hired gun for projects where they wanted some extra people. And I remember sitting on ultimateguitar.com, at least when that was a thing, and hearing that Immortal had finished their drums recordings or something, in Sweden with Peter Taktgren. And I was thinking, I wonder what's going to happen with Immortal now, because Abbat had just left the project 1 or 2 years prior. So I was wondering what they were going to do. And I was just thinking, I wouldn't want to be in that position. And it's so funny because, I was sitting in Earshot and Conclave Studios when Demonas from Immortal just walked in, and we were starting production with Immortal. And I was like, oh my God, what? It wasn't just Demonas, so ended up working with like all these other people like Gal and Tom Kato and other just local black metal legends,
right,
frequent for the studio, right? Not to mention Enslaved. And I just really cool people, and picking up some uncommon but really fundamental techniques. And that was just super cool. And that was kind of where that, working with legendary people kind of started. I had pre-produced a band called 101st in Bergen, working with Sylvia Massey. And she was going to work with some other Bergen bands too. And I was called in to be an engineer. So that's how that ended up happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with the whole Frederick Nordstrom thing, which was another huge deal for me, I like to think of that as manifesting, because I was really obsessed with his brand of sound and his techniques and all that kind of stuff. And I've been for a long time. He's my idol in music production because of the legendary things he did. Like, there's no guitar tone like the Clayman sound. Right? That, what he did with At the Gates Slaughter of the Soul, he did so many super fundamental maneuvers in metal music. There wouldn't be melodic death metal without him. Not as we know it, certainly. Right? He, as far as I know, really invented the modern metal sound as we have come to love it. Right? And it also produced Hammerfall. Right? And I remember thinking that it would be so cool to work with Fredrik Nordstrom with one of my productions. It would be so cool to see what he does with it. And when Ricky announced to me, I was already working with Isiliel, Ricky announced to me that, okay, we have the budget for a producer, and I remember that, I have to say this now. Hey, Ricky, why not Fredrik Nordstrom? Right? And he just thought that was a great idea because he's a fan of his stuff, right? So I was like, yay, it happened.
Well, that's really cool.
So how all this stuff end up happening, I like to think that, there are opportunities all the time, all around you. I like to think that's the case, and I really think it's the case, and I think that you have to be ready for them to even see them. Right? I think that, you definitely need to know the right people sometimes, but getting to know the right people comes as a result very often of having done something that those people are going to appreciate. We end up working with Fredrik Nordstrom because we could afford him. Right? I ended up working with Ricky because he liked what I was doing. I ended up working with Demoness because I was in the right studio, because those people liked what I was doing and wanted to give me an opportunity. Yes, they were my teachers. And yeah, it is always a bit of chance, but it is also the case that I was ready for those challenges and opportunities.
You did touch on something there. I think I think most people know I'm a big believer in, yes, there is opportunity at every single corner, but you're right. You have to open up your mind to it to even believe that it's there. I mean, obviously, I know I get stuck in it sometimes. It's really important that instead of saying why something's not going to work, it's more flipping, well, why not? It is going to work. This is going to happen. This, these things are available. This is possible. This is opportunity is always knocking if you'll answer the door.
Absolutely. And the flip side that is also has to be acknowledged, because it can easily sound like, oh, you just have the wrong mindset. That's why your life sucks.
No.
Right? But it is the case that, mindsets, we don't necessarily have all the control in the world over them, right? And I do have my spells of bad days and days where it looks like all hope is gone and, there's nothing you can do. And cultivating a good mindset, isn't necessarily just forcing yourself to think good thoughts. It might involve being better at noticing nice things, and over time you might be able to appreciate those things more. But it's like all those things like sleep and exercise and good nutrition, try not to drink too much, and all of those things sometimes make enough of a difference to tilt you over to the overall positive mindset, right? And it's definitely the case that if you're generally speaking positive, that is what it is by definition, I would say. It's like seeing more opportunity. If you have anxiety, I think the definition of that is seeing threats more than you should, right? Or feeling the pressure of threats more than you really should. But if you're in a really good mood, you're willing to take risks. And we are kind of wired for a world that is a lot more dangerous than this one. We aren't really, wired for a world of comfort, as is the one we have. Things are overall very safe. We totally should take a lot more risk than we do, right? Daring to send that email, or daring to having the courage to risk failure, right?
Yeah.
A lot better to put music out there than to not put music out there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, if you have a relatively large following, you have to be mindful not to put out shit that you don't believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, daring to spend time doing music. Because that one gets more and more scary as I age, right? It's like, do I really have time to do this? Will there be a music industry in 5 years, 10 years, you know? And, well, that's a leap of faith and a half. But taking those leaps of faith are so much better than, you know, staying sheltered in your room and not doing anything. That's the recipe of depression if you don't already have it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it absolutely is. I think, yeah, you're right. No matter what, it's daring to do what you love. Daring to stand up and do the thing.
So many great days begin with courage, don't they?
Yes, they absolutely do. You always bring such a unique and I think really mind-expanding perspective to things. I think it's really refreshing to hear. And I hope that our listeners will also find that same sort of feeling and give them a happy, positive approach to the day. You make a deep impact on a lot of people. And I know that as you continue all of your songwriting, all of your production, all of the amazing things that you do, that you're just going to keep doing more of that. So now that the EP's been released and you can order it on Bandcamp, it'll be available in store sometime very soon as well. There is a lot of stuff coming up this year for Isiliel and Lilin. Don't forget the Lilin. And do you want to have a little run through what's coming?
What is coming? Himari is on tour right now. And I believe that by the time this is out, you'll already have played some gigs.
Yes.
Of shows that are of particular relevance that one should look a lot forward to. One should absolutely, if one can, be in London between July 23rd and 27th. Because she'll be doing the HMV show in London. Mm-hmm. And she
on the 23rd?
Yes, and she'll be the priestess of our wedding on the 24th in the Cart and Horses, yes. Which is where Iron Maiden debuted.
Yes.
Such a cool thing. And we're going to get married.
Wee!
And we thought it was only super fitting to have, well, Isiliel is what brought us together, right?
Yes.
So to have that done, so to speak, with Isiliel. We both think it's just the perfect thing to do.
Exactly. So come for a night of love and heavy metal.
And then July 26th.
But wait.
Oh?
But don't forget that on the 24th as well, there's an exclusive CD available.
Yes, there is an exclusive CD that will be sold at the show of a track that will never be released elsewhere.
That's right. And so you can pre-order it with your tickets, or you can pick it up day of, but otherwise, it'll never be there again.
Nope, never. And then we have July 26th, the Underworld show, Isiliel's biggest show to date.
Yeah.
With the Lilin.
With the Lilin. And as of recording this, those 2 dates in London, the 24th and the 26th, are the only dates of this tour with the Lilin.
Yes.
As of recording this, disclaimer, things are always subject to change, but that's how it stands right now. These are the biggest shows and very much part of Isiliel history, in my perspective at least. Just there's so much to celebrate.
No, but those tickets to the Underworld, they're going left and right.
Yes, they are. They are. Then, as you said, you're working on the 3rd album right now.
Yes.
And we don't have a release date for that yet, but it's in the works. And so there's a lot to look forward to. I do believe that Todeshochzeit has given people a whole mind-blowing sparkly, like, excitement about everything. I think this is a real, it's a real growth period for Isiliel, and I'm so excited to see it.
Yes.
So in addition to writing for and producing Isiliel, you also offer a lot of services yourself for other artists to get in touch. You do songwriting, you do composing, production, teaching, all sorts of things. So if you need help with the projects that you are working on, go check out his website, www.nickenproductions.com. For tickets to Moonbow Union at Cart and Horses, 24th of July, check out heavymetalhippiemusic.com and check out the events page to grab yours today. And we really hope to see you at the Underworld on the 26th of July. Grab your tickets from Dice or directly from the Underworld Camden website. Thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait to have you on further episodes.
Oh, pleasure's all mine.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Healthy Metal Hippie podcast. For more ways to connect, go to www.healthymetalhippie.com.